books of old, the legends and the myths.
I just finished up 5 years of studying psychology. I did a 3-year undergrad, followed by a 2-year master's in counselling. And I started this teaching degree knowing that this was the work that I wanted to, the direction I wanted to take my work in, and that was working with young children. The first literacy event I want to talk about today is starting in that teaching profession and really finding I gelled so well with all of our science-based teachers. And it wasn't really until I started hitting those primary placements that I noticed that I was out of touch. Going from a fairly successful psychology and counselling student, I'd become a slightly behind teaching student, as well as a slightly behind master of literacy. Now, literacy has never been a strength of mine, but one that I wish to work on. And I suppose that's where it all started for me. In my teaching degree, I felt like I was not part of a group. I felt like I was a bit of an outsider, a bit like I guess some people would feel about the emoji world we're living in when they receive a text message and they're like, what's this emoji doing? It was really subtle. And the subtle differences were those huge things that were barriers that I couldn't identify and I couldn't overcome. Read G's work on disciplinary literacies that it really struck home that these subtle differences are there. And the reason I'm not being as successful as I like is because I'm not there. I'm not part of that group. I want to be part of that group, but it's going to take time for me to learn those subtle differences. It goes on to build a relationship between language and power. And I wasn't part of that powerful literacy group that was really resonated in a primary setting. Literacy is really held a lot higher than any other discipline. Why? Because of its cross-cultural and cross-curricular advantages. But to be a part of that group, I needed to upskill. And to upskill, I need to be a part of that community, which is what I'm learning to do now. Bernstein's discussion of restricted codes really resonates with me here because I felt like I was restricted. I was often told, this isn't your strength, or you're not smart enough, or it's not your thing. Well, it's not, but we can make it. Following on from that, my second literacy event that I want to talk about today is I was teaching grade 5-6. This was the first really long stint that I'd had in a primary classroom, and in particular, one of the first primary literacy classes that I had to teach. I found myself in a classroom that I couldn't identify with. We had a very generic approach to literacy where oral language was done in our news hour blocks, or our reading was the generic reading strategies, and our writing was genre-based writing. Here's the box, here's how you write a sentence, paragraph, introduction, conclusion, here's how you write your essay, here's your hamburger. And it just didn't gel right with me, and I saw a lot of kids disconnected from their learning and from literacy, and I was looking for ways to make it more relevant to them and more akin, I suppose, with their home literacies. And I found this really interesting, that I had to work so hard to develop this when literacy is such a social tool. When I looked at Amy Buckner's work on reading and writing's notebook, and this was just such a great example of how we could make literacy more practical and more relevant for the students. The sociological approach that we took to literacy then was so much more engaging for the kids, and I saw a real shift in their ability to connect with their own texts that they were reading, with showing evidence that they were actually reading and not just sitting there flicking through the pages looking at the pictures, and just their ability to engage in writing and love writing and enjoy those 15 to half an hour minutes each day to really delve deep into themselves and express themselves, and use literacy as that communication tool and not just as that clinical psychological tool. This is how we do it, this this is what good writers do. No, it was about the social and how they could be a part of the community. This changing from the really psychological approach of skills-based, strategies-based education in regards to literacy, and shifting towards the sociological and social factors of literacy really shaped my practice. And I think Amy Buckner really helped that with her notebook series, because it opened up a new way of teaching those psychological skills in social formats and in social settings, which really struck home for a lot of the students I was working with, especially from that low socioeconomic background, where they just didn't have those at-home literacies that made it relevant and interesting. Durant and Green really speak quite openly about their operational, cultural and critical spheres of literacy and their definitions of literacy. And I think these all play a crucial role in the production and reception of literacy. But at the heart of it, I think the cultural elements were really missing in my practice. I began really taking a critical cultural approach to my literacy practice, and especially with the implementation of Readers and Writers Notebook, and really identifying that literacy education, reading and writing, is a part of the everyday social experience for all kids and all students, and that we really need to teach them to be critical of the text. But before they get critical of the text, they need to understand the culture of the text. And so much of our work was focused on the operational side of teaching text, which really became problematic for a lot of our students. I think the fundamental part of literacy for me is that preservation and production of communication, whether it be in any mode of communication, but it's about the ability to communicate with someone else, or better yet, with yourself.